J Garden Center.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter. Locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America N.A.
Everyone on the road is trying to make it to their destination safely. You can help by staying aware of the large trucks and buses around you. They take longer to stop, have large blind spots, and make wide turns that require caution from other drivers. It takes all of us working together to share the road safely. Learn more at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov. Paid for by FMCSA.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Mark Christiansen.
Westbound on the 201 freeway looks great. If you're headed towards Magna, you will run into a few brake lights right around 3200 West. Other than that, it'll pick up again towards 7200 West. On Bangerter, no problems north or southbound, just the usual slowdowns at the intersections. Same with the Mountain View Corridor. The Utah RV Super Show is back September 12th through 15th at Mountain America Expo Center. Unplug from distractions and plug into your family at the Utah RV Super Show. Mark Christiansen in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny skies with a high of 83 today, rising into the 90s by the weekend. We do have some wildfire smoke that's diminishing our air quality. And right now, 75 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
It is great to be back with you today. I've been down in Peru. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the program. Meeting with some extraordinary young people, young professionals who are just looking to make a difference and have an impact in their communities, engaging with the political process, with government, doing it all through a set of principles. It was fascinating. We'll talk about that coming up in the second hour today, including a conversation I had with Elder David A. Bednar of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who was down there in Peru, spoke at this same event that I was part of with these young professionals, and really some interesting insight from a world religious leader on the role of faith and the role of principles in our communities and in our countries. We're also going to talk today, you don't want to miss this, coming up at 2:05, my conversation with Yuval Levin, a conversation we had on Sunday edition for KSL TV about his new book, The American Covenant, and how the Constitution united the nation and could again. A lot of us don't think of the Constitution as a unifying document, but there's actually some very important things inside that document that actually are the key to overcoming polarization and getting back to unity and forward progress. We'll hit a number of other things as we go through the day, but this is one of those days you just want to settle in, fasten your seatbelt, buckle up your chin strap, and we're going to get at some of the important issues of the day and hopefully do it in a principled way that will get you to think again about what you think you know, challenge the status quo, will help you connect a few dots and make the news make sense as we go along. And let's begin with the presidential race, of course, heating up as we get closer to Labor Day weekend. And one of the big things that will take place tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will sit down for the first time for an interview on CNN with Dana Bash. And many people have been calling for this. This will be the first interview that the vice president has taken since she secured the nomination and really buttoned all that up about 5 weeks ago. So it's been a long time coming. But as we look at that, and the headlines, of course, have been, what will she say? Is this the interview of a lifetime? We want to get past the headlines and underneath it. So let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
All right, tonight's the big night for Vice President Kamala Harris as she sits down for the first time for a TV interview. Many people have been calling on this for weeks now. I think from a strategy standpoint, I think she played it right. in terms of letting the momentum of the idea of her candidacy really drive the day and really propel them all the way through the Democratic National Convention last week. That's good political strategy. But now it's time to get to the reality and what comes next. So as we look at the things that she's going to need to answer, the things she's going to need to project tonight as she sits down with Dana Bash, I will note that the interview is pre-recorded. So obviously there will be some editing that will take place, and I'm sure that will cause some to howl and some to complain. Why not release the interview in its entirety as if it was going live rather than having something that was taped and then edited? To me, that's a little bit concerning because that makes it not a real interview because you can always cut out the parts that you don't like as a broadcast, and that makes it a little bit easier and a little less of a formal, meaningful sit-down conversation. Now, a lot of people have a lot of ideas about what they think Dana Bash ought to be asking and what she ought to be pressing on when it comes to Vice President Harris and what she intends to do if she were to win the White House and become the President of the United States. And there are things, of course, about her past. People want to know about the evolution of her thinking on a wide range of issues, from border security and immigration to criminal justice reform and a host of other things. And so I think there's a couple of things that we'll watch for tonight as this airs on CNN. And one of the big questions in my mind is, one, how much will her interaction with Tim Walz either positively or negatively influence the conversation? So I've talked about this throughout the day today. It's one thing to do a one-on-one interview. Whenever you are sitting alone behind a microphone or under a bank of lights and a TV camera, the pressure is on. And that's often the big test. She will have her running mate, Tim Walz, sitting beside her for this conversation with Dana Bash. And so if Vice President Harris feels like she needs to gather her thoughts a little bit, you may see her turn to Tim Walz and say, you had some experience with this in Congress, or you had some experience with this in Minnesota. Tell us about that. And so that'll be a very easy thing to do. But that's not the real test. The test of the person sitting behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office is, can you make the conversation? Can you make the decision and then communicate it when the pressure's on, when there's no one to turn to, when it's just you and a camera or you and a microphone? What will you do then? So we won't see that part of the equation unfold tonight. I have noted in several places that there is also some risk to having Tim Walz next to her. They don't know each other exceptionally well. They only really connected about 5 weeks ago as they began that formal vetting process for him to become the vice presidential nominee. And so will there be moments where they step on each other? Will he be too eager and aggressive and get out in front of Kamala Harris? Will there be times where he's a distraction? Will he play the attack dog role in terms of going after former President Trump? If those are the kinds of things that take place, then sadly I think this interview will be much more just an extension of the Democratic National Convention from last week. I hope that's not the case. I hope that Dana Bash will ask hard questions, not gotcha questions, but serious questions with serious follow-up and next-level follow-up. To really dig into it a little bit to see where the substance is and where things need to go. So obviously there'll be a lot to watch and a lot of dynamics to play out there. And then the real question, I talked to Dave and Debbie about this earlier today. The question is, will this interview tonight kind of satisfy those who have been yelling and screaming about her not doing interviews? And rightly so, I will say. Will this meet the bar? Or will this be something that just adds a little fuel to the fire to say, well, that wasn't a real interview. Now she needs to do a press conference, which she also has not done. Does she need to do a press conference and do a freewheeling answering of hard questions from journalists without any backup, without any editing, without anybody standing next to her? Does she need to do that? So those are all important questions. And the things that I would listen for tonight, I would listen for the specifics versus the sweeping generalities. I would look much more, and I hope if I were advising her, I would say, I wouldn't spend any time on your opponent. I wouldn't even mention him. And just talk about what you want to do, what your vision is, and what you're inviting the nation to be part of. I think that's a winning strategy. If they do spend a lot of time talking about the former president, I think that helps the former president. It will become a different kind of conversation. And so whether Vice President Harris chooses to do that, whether Tim Walz sitting next to her on the couch will do the same thing, or whether he will feel the need to play that role of attack dog and go after the former president, those are all fine things. But they speak volumes in terms of what their focus is on and how they intend to not only win the election, but to lead the nation. And sometimes those are things that are counterintuitive. And those are things that often compete against each other. The tugs and pulls of winning a campaign versus the tug and pull of how will you actually lead the nation and govern. Those are two very different things. Well, we're going to stay with the conversation. Coming up in the next segment, we're going to dig in a little more underneath. What does she need to communicate, and what have we come to accept as voters from candidates? Sweeping generalities, bumper sticker slogans versus real policy and real specifics. And why is that? And what do we need to change? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. When the midday hunger pangs hit,
KSL's top story this hour.
make Utah's new news your lunch break companion.
Good afternoon, Maria. We do have delays.
Stay updated with in-depth reports on the day's biggest stories and updated weather. Utah's new news with Maria Chaleos. Weekdays noon to 1 on KSL News Radio.
It is back to school time and a great time for you to set a good example for your kids.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to myself here too, because for years I used to eat, I was just addicted to chips and all kinds of other things that kept 40 extra pounds on me for most of my adult life. But then I started Soda Weight Loss, and I showed my kids you can eat healthy and still be happy, still eat the foods you like and lose weight and be healthier. This is Nick.
If you stick with this program, I promise you, you will lose weight. And this is coming from somebody that I couldn't even barely walk when I started this. How many pounds I was carrying was hurting my knees and my back. I have to say that I'm a true believer of this.
I'm a true believer too, Tim.
Yeah, and so is my daughter who lost 42 pounds. It's so much more, and how many times have we said this, than just those numbers on the scale. The weight really keeps you from doing the things you want to do in life, and you're not as hungry either. Go to SodaWeightLoss.com right now. Click on the Request a Nutritionist callback, and within minutes, they'll be on the phone to get you started. SodaWeightLoss.com, spelled SOTA, and it stands for State of the
Art!
Nearly 70% of Utah's land is controlled by the federal government, severely limiting Utah's ability to actively manage and protect our natural resources. Our families, businesses, and communities know there's a better way. Utahns have been good stewards of our public lands for generations. That's why we're asking each and every Utahn to get informed, speak up, and learn more at standforourland.utah.gov.
You wouldn't know it, but most financial advisors are put in a box. I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want to provide you a little insight about financial advisors. Most financial advisors have to sell what their company requires them to sell, and many advisors have to only adhere to what's called a suitability standard. A suitability standard is a limited standard of care, not requiring what's sold to be best, just suitable. Advisors with this loose standard often have limited investment and product selection. Trajan Wealth is held to a fiduciary standard, which is the highest standard of care in the advisory business. And that's just one of the many reasons we have billions of dollars under our care and attract clients from other advisors. Raise your standards today and call Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and NPS from 10 to 1 as the movie show stops by. Then, browse and uncover what makes NPS so great. With 4 locations, NPS takes a new inventory every day. Then, they check all competitors' retail pricing before marking items down 20 to 70% off. You're invited to visit the movie show this Friday from 10 to 1. And that's the first step to discovering NPS. Visit npsstore.com to begin your own NPS adventure. npsstore.com.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want?
Can we sleep cooler? Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. And now, during our biggest sale of the year, save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Plus free home delivery on select smart beds when you add any base. Ends Labor Day. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
The best things in life, they come in twos. 2 scoops of ice cream, 2 tacos. And now for a limited time, get our best deal of the year. Buy any phone when you switch to Consumer Cellular and get 2 months of service free. That's right, the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage as Big Wireless, now with 2 months free. Proof the best things in life really do come in twos. Visit consumercellular.com or call 1-888-FREEDOM. Second and third month of monthly base service fee waived for new customers with the purchase of a phone and activation by September 2nd, 2024. Taxes, fees, and third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, what are you waiting for? Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the University of Utah kicks off its football season tonight against Southern Utah. Second, Israeli forces are conducting what's described as the biggest military operation in the West Bank in more than 20 years. And third, Utah's first-time homebuyers program has helped more than 1,300 new homeowners. 75 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and we're staying with the conversation as it relates to Vice President Kamala Harris. Of course, she will sit down with CNN for an interview, and I will say she already sat down with CNN. It was pre-recorded. We're not sure exactly how they're going to play it out. If there were edits made, if it was live to tape, is one way you usually frame that in the media business. And that is that you would air it in its entirety just the way it played out. It sounds to me the way CNN is approaching it is it will not be live to tape. They will make some edits. So it will be interesting to see how those edits play out, what they actually are, and what the call is in terms of airing the entirety of the interview without edits. That's also an interesting thing to get to. Now, a lot of this gets to how do you run a presidential campaign and how do you communicate? And whether it's a presidential campaign or a gubernatorial race or a local race for mayor or city council, there's a lot of things that we have come to accept in this country that are a little bit interesting. Of course, on this show, we always want to get to the principles and the policy. We also want to get to the specifics. And we are seeing less and less of that in our campaigns. Why? Because we are not rewarding it. We are rewarding sweeping generalities, bumper sticker slogans, and it just keeps playing out. In fact, there was a great piece in Roll Call by Nathan Gonzalez who talked about this, the people who are criticizing Vice President Harris for not giving very many specifics, no real detailed policy proposals. And it's interesting, the way Nathan Gonzalez pointed it out was, look, we've been rewarding this kind of behavior for quite a while now. So you can go back to former President Donald Trump. In 2016, he had very, very, very few specifics. It was Make America Great Again. It was a slogan. It was vague. It had a lot of possibilities. And it worked in 2016. Barack Obama, of course, was about hope and change in 2008. No real policy specifics, kind of a blank slate. And so sadly, we've been rewarding this kind of behavior, and so we shouldn't wonder or question why we're not getting any details or policy specifics. And here's the reason why, and this is the problem. So if you give a detailed policy proposal, you will have one of your opponents take that and slice it and dice it and turn it into all kinds of negative ads against you. Because they'll take some little component of it and they'll say, well, that would hurt old people. That would hurt children. That would hurt this class of people or that class of people. And suddenly, a positive proposal that a candidate is putting forward has suddenly become a burden and a liability. Because the other side weaponizes the words, demonizes everything that they're trying to do. and it becomes a negative rather than a positive. So part of it is we can't be all that surprised that we're not getting policy specifics because we're not rewarding policy specifics as voters. We're rewarding the great sweeping generalities of Make America Great Again, hope and change. And right now, for the last 5 weeks, Vice President Harris has been flying high on an idea. She's just an idea. And the idea is she was not Joe Biden and she was not Donald Trump. So now things are going to change a little bit, especially as we get closer to a debate coming up on the 10th. But the question will be, will that also be sweeping generalities from both sides? And then what is our job as voters to start demanding different? Are we willing to do that? And are we willing to look past the negative campaign ads that always follow policy specifics? A great example of this is Social Security. If any candidate says we have to make changes to Social Security to make it solvent for the future, there will be an ad up before the end of the day and a fundraising email before the end of the lunch hour that says candidate X wants to change Social Security and take away your benefits. And that's what we've been rewarding. And so we shouldn't be surprised by all of that. And then we shouldn't be surprised that we end up with people in office who maybe don't have the policy chops or who aren't so interested in actually having a serious policy discussion. And so whether that's about immigration, whether that's about fracking, whether that's about energy, whether it's about health care or Social Security or Medicare or Medicaid, if you want things to change, you have to have people who are going to talk about the change and not in a bumper sticker. Because bumper stickers don't change anything. Never in the history of ever has a bumper sticker changed the direction of a policy. Never in the history of ever has a bumper sticker solved a political problem or a policy problem or a human problem. Now, sure, they can be a great place to start a conversation, but only if you get to the specifics does it matter. And that's why you often hear me say, look, you can use all of these little techniques from political campaigns and you can win an election. You can do that, absolutely. You can demonize your opponent. You can go negative. You can talk about all the things that you're against. You can use populism unhinged from principle, and you can win an election. But that doesn't mean you get to lead, and it rarely means you're going to govern efficiently. And so we shouldn't be surprised by any of that. I would tell business executives regularly, you talk to me in sweeping generalities and you are not going to succeed. But you talk to me in the specifics, you're not going to fail. But sadly, in our politics, we have reversed that and we are rewarding the sweeping generalities. And it's much easier to hide behind sweeping generalities than it is to defend the specifics of what you're actually going to do. But if we make the rewards so inverted that no one is going to talk about it, then we can't complain because that's what we're going to continue to get served up. And I'm telling you, that is not a good day for our republic when we no longer have people running for office, especially the highest offices in the land, whether that's at the state level, whether that's at the federal level, who are unwilling to talk about specific policies because they're too afraid of the political consequences. That's not good for the republic. So let's have a real conversation. And then let's reward a real conversation. I mean, you can go to either former President Trump's or Kamala Harris's website, and I triple dog dare you to find me a specific policy proposal. Anything beyond a sweeping generality of we're going to cut taxes, we're going to raise taxes, we're going to make so-and-so pay their fair share, we're going to build a wall, we're going to be energy independent. Those are all great things. Those are all worthy of conversations. But that's not going to get it done. Remember, when we talk in sweeping generalities, we very rarely succeed. But when we talk about the specifics, we very rarely fail. So why, oh, why can we not invite, encourage, and demand that those running for office deal in specifics, not just in bumper sticker slogans? All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. There are more than 1,300 new home buyers in Utah that were able to get low or no-cost loans as part of the First-Time Home Buyers Assistance Program. Spokesperson Race Knudsen says more than $26 million have been given out to first-time buyers so far.
Magna has been in the top 5 cities that have identified properties. Tooele County is another major area we're seeing, Saratoga Springs.
The program provides money for down payments, closing costs, or reduced interest on a loan. It was enacted by the legislature last year. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Israel's defense forces say they've killed the head of a terrorist network during their ongoing operation in the West Bank. This operation has involved multiple cities and hundreds of troops, described as the biggest in the West Bank in more than 20 years. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average, we'll have to check on that a bit later with a computer glitch at the moment, but coming up, looks like sunny skies through the rest of the week, and that's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. The other night, Dee and I saw one of the very first performances of the Addams Family at Hale Center Theater. As we were walking out after the performance on the Jewel Box stage, Dee said, "This is my favorite performance so far on that stage at Hale Center Theater," and that is saying something. This is the story primarily of little Wednesday. She is not so little anymore. She's grown up, and she wants to marry a normal person. And bringing these two families together is really something, to say the least. One of my favorite scenes, Wednesday is agonizing over whether or not this is actually going to work. And she sings a song called Pulled, which is wonderful. But what's even more wonderful is she is joyfully torturing Pugsley all that time. There are production numbers, even great scenes for Lurch and Thing. Don't miss the Addams Family at Hale Center Theater, and so much more is still to come. Season tickets for next year, great performances this year. Go to hct.org for your tickets.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you know that these days, generating growth is a challenge. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll not just stay ahead of the curve, you'll move it. With access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America N.A.
When might you be buzzed? When you suddenly love everything.
You guys, I love this song. I love these nachos. I love our kickball league. Ugh! I love this guy. What's your name? You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I love your car. Is this real leather?
Hey, BYU football fans, come visit your local Macy's grocery store for all your tailgating needs. Macy's has great prices on all of your favorite game day items, like burger patties, made fresh dips, and more. Did you know that your favorite tailgate foods are also now offered through Macy's Catering? Macy's offers a wide variety of catering platters, from smoked meats to wings, and even desserts. Catering is available to order online at Macys.com or in store. So, whether you're having a small or large party, Macy's has you covered. Never miss a deal when you sign up for the rewards program and emails to get the digital ad sent straight to your inbox each week. Come visit your local Macy's grocery store for all of your tailgating needs. Get game day ready with Macy's. Happy shopping.
Our Dow Jones average up 323 points today. The NASDAQ is just barely down. And now traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Mark Christiansen.
Great traffic pattern still in motion, headed northbound into Davis County, southbound out of the downtown area towards the south end of the Salt Lake Valley. No problems there. 215 checks in good, even the south end of the valley as well. Beat Labor Day heat and cool off during Park City Gallery Association's Friday Art Stroll. Participating galleries featuring multi-medium art exhibits. Find what speaks to you. Visit ParkCityGalleryAssociation.com. I'm Mark Christiansen in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny today with a high of 83, rising into the 90s by the weekend. Wildfire smoke affecting our air quality right now. And currently we're at 77 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Last week in Brasilia, Brazil, was the G20 Interfaith Forum. Now, the G20 Interfaith Forum takes place usually ahead of the G20 Economic Forum. I have long believed that this was significant, that the leaders of faith organizations and NGOs and government leaders come together in the G20 Interfaith Forum before they get together to talk about economics. Because in the Interfaith Forum, it's often about the economics of goodness and the influence of those around the world who are simply making a difference in local communities. Well, in this year's version of the G20 Interfaith Forum, Elder Ulysses Suarez, an apostle of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, addressed the group. He chose to speak about the concept of moral mangroves. That's an important message that we've talked about on this program before. These mangroves, which live along the coastal lines, they filter toxins and pollutants through this extensive root system. They're really underneath the water. And so this extensive roots are all interconnected. It provides buffers against big waves and hurricanes and tsunamis. Also really interesting, the interconnected roots also provide a place for young fish to safely grow and mature. It also protects the older fish that are in there as well. They keep out the large predators. It literally helps to keep the shoreline in place. And so I found it interesting that Elder Suarez chose to use moral mangroves as something that we need in society, and whether people of faith or of no faith. These are things that keep our communities connected and interconnected, and actually strengthens society and strengthens countries. So I want to turn to a portion of Elder Suarez's conversation and his address at the G20 Interfaith Forum in Brazil this past week. And he began by laying out the framing of where we are as a society and what we ought to be thinking about. Take a listen.
There is something holy that happens, something so stirring that is sparked, and a divinity that is drawn down from heaven when we gather on occasions such as this. Together, we can better play our individual parts and combine our collective strength to bring down barriers, build bridges, cure contempt, promote peace, solve problems, alleviate suffering, and elevate the condition of all God's children in lasting, sustainable ways. We are living in difficult days and extraordinarily trying times. There are wars and rumors of wars in every part of the world. Millions of people flee civil conflicts. Refugees face starvation. Religious minorities bear persecution. Innocent people endure tyranny. Catastrophes in the natural world drive populations from their homes. Many yearn for freedom and hope for better lives and a better world for their children. Humanity suffers in many ways, and many feel lonely, discouraged, and depressed. All of this is anxiety inducing and pain producing for individuals and families. Sadly, amid all of this, we tend to see only impersonal groups and not individual souls. Souls shape solutions, individuals inspire hope and healing. The sustainable solutions we seek are not limited to the natural world, and the healing we hope for in our countries, our congregations, and our communities requires us to do and be better individually and collectively.
So, as Elder Suarez outlined there at the G20 Interfaith Forum in Brazil, there are a lot of challenges out there. He talked about many of the difficulties, but I love this whole idea that he put forward that it's souls that shape solutions. So, rather than looking at groups that we often do, that we have to look at souls because that's how things begin to change. It's one person at a time, it's one interaction at a time, whether it's someone dealing with addiction, someone who's facing homelessness, someone who is a refugee or dealing from the consequences of a natural or man-made disaster. We have to see not just groups, but souls. I think that was a stirring and important comment there from Elder Suarez. He went on to talk about how our society really mirrors where we are with mangroves, social mangroves, not just those that are off the coast of Brazil.
Our society itself has lost so many of its social, normative, and political mangroves as well, all those things that used to filter toxic behaviors, buffer political extremism, and nurtured healthy communities and trusted institutions for young people to grow up in, and which hold our society together. Let's consider the moral societal mangrove made up of faith-filled people and faith-driven institutions so necessary to filtering out toxic behaviors around the world.
Elder Ulysses Suarez of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Quorum of the 12 Apostles, went on to talk about the reverence we need to have for individual life if we want to strengthen family and community.
Humanity is losing the capacity to feel reverence for human dignity and human divinity. Such reverence is a great filter to the toxic society in which we live that can remove hate and envy, suspicion and distrust, and the language of they and them. Embracing the dignity and divinity that religion can teach us prevents othering of those who live, look, or believe differently, and ensures that the toxic elements within the moral relativism of modern society are filtered out and removed before they become a cancer of contempt within individual hearts and across communities.
So whether you're a person of faith or of no faith, Elder Suarez was talking about the fact that we have to see across and have dignity for our humanity while also seeing the divinity in the potential that each person carries, and how people of faith, again with this group of interfaith leaders from around the world gathering in Brasilia, Brazil at the G20 Interfaith Forum, he talked about the need to be able to take that faith into the public square and the impact that it can have.
Striving to live a spiritual life broadens our perspectives and ennobles our everyday struggles. Religious communities serve as a bulwark against the forces of despair, chaos, and feelings of insignificance. The world's sacred literature inspires us to feel deeper and look higher, to lead lives of goodness and simplicity. Religion teaches us to overcome the weaknesses within us and fight the injustices outside of us. Politicians and governments have important roles to play in society. Community and culture also have an important role and lead all the efforts in that accomplishment. There is where you and I play a vital role in the community as sources of lasting, meaningful solutions. People of faith and religious institutions are and must always be a living force for good in society.
Elder Suarez continued saying that it's crucial for faith-based organizations of all kinds to serve and to foster and convene many of the important conversations we need in the world today.
Faith-based organizations can serve to facilitate crucial conversations and engagement on a wide array of issues. Faith cannot and should not be banished from the public square, nor should be sequestered in individual homes, mosques, synagogues, temples, or churches. A pluralistic society that accepts people of all faiths and of no faith brings greater strength and understanding to the world.
Elder Ulysses Suarez in this G20 Interfaith Forum rounded out his remarks by inviting his participants, his fellow leaders from around the world, to engage in kind of a moral mangrove, much like the mangroves that are off the coast of Brazil, that we need to be interconnected, that we need to be the ones that take out the toxic elements of society. We need to be the ones that create space for our young people to flourish and thrive. We need to be the one to be a security against the forces that will take away individual freedom, religious freedom, and cause countries to really struggle.
It takes extraordinary women and great men to promote the societal moral mangroves the people of the world desperately need. Religious freedom, people of faith, and institutions can provide a filter from the toxic attitudes and declining morals in society and against the violent storms of divisiveness, contempt, polarization, apathy, and indifference. As a collective moral mangrove, we can protect future generations from forces of addiction, isolation, narcissism, and moral relativism that could consume them. A moral mangrove and all the people who are part of it are crucial to the fabric that strengthens and holds our society together and give us faith in the future of the world.
That's the address of Elder Ulysses Suarez, an apostle in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, speaking in Brazil at the G20 Interfaith Forum. I have watched that Interfaith Forum since before the pandemic. I actually attended in Tokyo back before the pandemic, and it's so inspiring to see different religious leaders from a wide range of religious beliefs and faith, members of government, members of NGOs, all coming together to look at some of the big challenges that the world faces and recognize that the answer to all of those are, just as Elder Ulysses Suarez declared at the end of his address, that it takes extraordinary women and great men to foster the societal moral mangroves that the people of the world so desperately needs. We'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next on KSL News Radio.
I know this is a silly question, but wouldn't you like to have more money in your savings account?
Sure.
UCCU wants to help you do that with some high-rate savings options with yields up to 5.25%.
So you can supercharge your savings. Take that money that you have sitting in a savings account, transfer it to UCCU, and make more money on your money.
They have incredibly high yields on money market savings accounts and short-term savings certificates. We've talked about that before, but if you've forgotten a savings certificate, you just make one deposit up front and then let your money grow over a fixed period of time. And they've got them laid out for 3 months, 6 months, even 12 months.
Or 5 years, whatever works for you. And if you need immediate access to your money, UCCU's Money Market will give you a high yield and anytime access.
So if you've got your money in a savings account at a different lending institution, transfer it over and start earning more on your money today with yields up to 5.25%.
Get a true financial advocate, one that's always outperforming the average rates of Utah banks.
Go to uccu.com. You're going to love where you bank.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from the station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
It's happening at pharmacies all across America. Older Americans keep asking, where are the lower prices on prescription drugs Joe Biden and Kamala Harris keep taking credit for? First, Harris cast the deciding vote for the Inflation Reduction Act, promising to lower drug prices. Then the Biden-Harris administration used the money from Medicare to bankroll their liberal green agenda. That's right. Instead of savings, seniors got a 20% premium increase, restrictions on access to medicine, and fewer cures. Now, liberals want to expand this Biden-Harris scheme that is already hurting seniors. Thankfully, Congressman Blake Moore has always fought to protect Medicare drug coverage. Call him at 202-224-3121. Urge him to keep fighting for affordable drug coverage by opposing H.R. 4895. Paid for by Seniors for Better Care.
In a world where ugly siding, leaky gutters, and inefficient windows are sapping homeowners of their will to live, one company must save us all. This year, join RGS Exteriors as it embarks on a mission to eliminate outdated home exteriors, one Utah home at a time. Every plank of old, ugly siding must be replaced. Every leaky gutter must be eradicated. Every inefficient, energy-sapping window must be vanquished once and for all. Begin your epic remodeling quest by calling RGS Exteriors for a free estimate. Discover how a heroic team of experts will save your siding, gutters, or windows for a fair, no-nonsense price. Call RGS Exteriors at 801-280-3110 or journey online to rgsexteriors.com. RGS Exteriors, coming soon to a home near you.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want? Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. And now, during our biggest sale of the year, save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Plus free home delivery on select smart beds when you add any base. Ends Labor Day. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Using the Labor Day weekend to get some work done? We got you. Stop by any store to save on oil, fuel system cleaner, wipers, and more. Looking for an end of summer wash? We've got deals for that too. Don't want to leave the garage? Get same-day delivery on AutoZone.com. Do Labor Day your way by getting something done at AutoZone.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, there's still plenty of money left in Utah's first-time homebuyers program. Second, Israel's military says it's killed a top terrorist leader in its ongoing operation in the West Bank. Third, tailgaters grilling up their favorites across from Rice-Eccles Stadium, getting ready for tonight's football season opener at the University of Utah. 77 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. We're going to take a little detour away from all of the political pitch and everything that's happening as it relates to campaigns as we march our way past Labor Day and into the fall campaign. But there's some other campaigns that are kicking off, and you can feel it in the air. No, it's not a presidential debate. Tonight, the long-awaited return of college football is upon us. I know you've already noted that and probably already have your popcorn popping, especially if you're a University of Utah fan. But we wanted to dig into this, as we always do, because this is such a great look at society and culture in our country. And to actually give us a good look at what is going to happen on the field this year, we're very pleased to be joined, as always, by Mitch Harper, BYU sports reporter for KSL and radio host of Cougar Sports Saturday and the Cougar Tracks podcast for KSL News Radio. Mitch, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good afternoon, Boyd. Happy to be on with you.
Isn't it? You can just feel it in the air. Like, even though it's still hot and it's kind of summer, it's like, okay, we can start the fall now.
No question. This is a special time of the year. It's the ultimate anticipation sport, and there's a lot of good reason for people to be excited about this football season because the teams in this state have some awesome storylines. So it's going to be a fun year.
Yeah, and before we get to BYU, where I know you spend a lot of time for KSL News Radio, let's start up on the hill here in Salt Lake City with the University of Utah, who will be part of the national kickoff tonight as they launch into a season with a lot of high expectations.
No doubt. And, Utah goes into the Big 12 conference, their first season. They loved being in the Pac-12 conference. So it probably wasn't the move they wanted to make. But the positive is that they're in a league that has direct access to the college football playoff, which now increases from 4 to 12 teams. And if Utah wins this Big 12, they're going to go play in the playoff and have a chance to go compete for a national championship. So that chase for the 12-team playoff, I think, has ignited a renewed sense of energy for Kyle Whittingham. Cam Rising, the quarterback, he's back from an ACL injury that caused him to miss all of last year. And they also get star tight end Brant Keithy back from injury too. So Utah is deep, and they're the preseason favorite to win the Big 12 conference. So there's high expectations for the Utes.
Yeah, no question about that. And those high expectations will be tested first from a Utah team. Southern Utah University will be the opponent up on the field at Rice-Eccles tonight. So we'll watch that one very close. Let's shift over to BYU. Obviously, more question marks than expectations down there in Provo. Give us your sense rolling into the season.
Well, when you open this segment about politics and elections, I thought to myself, that's a way more intense topic than how BYU's treating the quarterback battle. They're acting like it's deep state secrets, this quarterback battle. I'm thinking, compared to an election or politics, this is much more tame than politics. But still, they're taking it serious. Jake Retzlaff and Gary Bohannon are the top two quarterbacks for BYU, and no one around the BYU program is leaking it. So I commend them. They are trying to keep this as tight as possible, but it's trending towards being Jake Retzlaff being that first quarterback for BYU on Saturday. And he played last season. He started 4 games for BYU, but he was winless. And, BYU is a team that has a lot of question marks, but I will say, Boyd, that I think the talent has improved across the board on the team as far as their depth, but they got to get it right at quarterback, because if you don't have success there, there's not many great BYU teams of the past that can point to great years without good quarterback play. BYU's in its 100th season this year, and they pride themselves on great quarterback play. They've got to get it right, whether it's Retzlaff or Bohannon.
Yeah, no question about that. And of course, the lovely element with college football in particular is it's not a vote and it's not a poll in the end. You actually have to show up and do it on the field. Just real quickly in our last couple of minutes here, Mitch, give us something. We always like to look for what's underneath the headlines. Give us an underneath the headline that you're watching for as this BYU season begins.
Kalani Sitake is an interesting headline because what's his job status this year? He's entering his 9th season, and he's coming off a losing year, 5-7.
Yeah.
And it was his second losing season during his time at BYU. There's a belief around the BYU program that no matter what the record is this year, his job is safe going forward, kind of as BYU settles into life as a Big 12 member. But still, BYU prides itself on winning at a high level. AD Tom Holmoe spoke at Education Week a couple weeks ago to Education Week attendees, and he noted that year 2 of the Big 12 is about living up to the standard. Well, that standard is winning at a high level. He noted BYU football is 9th in college football the last 50 years in wins. So this is one of the winningest programs. And if they have a losing year and struggle again, what does that mean for Kalani Sitake's job? So that's a storyline that I'm monitoring. But Kalani is the perfect coach for BYU from a personality. He kind of embodies like the tradition, the history. He loves BYU football. It's just a matter of he's got to get it right and find their identity inside the Big 12 conference.
I think that's right. Finding the identity and making sure that culture and everything you're building around the program can drive all of that forward. Well, Mitch, we are looking forward to a lot of great analysis and insight from you as things roll forward. We appreciate you carving out a little bit of time for us, and you can feel it in the air, and it is game time, and we look forward to hearing from you throughout the college football season. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks as always, Boyd. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
All right, that's Mitch Harper, BYU sports reporter for KSL, radio host of Cougar Sports Saturday and the Cougar Tracks podcast for KSL News Radio. And, of course, you can catch all those BYU football games here on KSL News Radio. And as you look at all of the things as it relates to college football, the one thing that I think is most important, the lesson, I think, whether you're a big college football fan or not, the lesson is always the same because football games and football seasons are all about how you respond to whatever happens, whether it's something good or whether it's something bad. The game only asks, how are you going to respond? If you do well for a couple of plays, how are you going to respond? The referee makes a bad call, how are you going to respond? You go on a winning streak or a losing streak, how will you respond? And that's really the test for all of us, individually, as communities, and even as a nation. When things happen, how do we respond? All right, we'll step aside for some top-of-the-hour news. Hour number 2 is coming up next. You don't want to miss this. We're going to kick it off with Yuval Levin, American Covenant, how the U.S. Constitution united us and can unite us again. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Utah fans amped up for the start of the football season tonight, and the chance the Utes could make some noise on a national scale. Here's KSL News Radio's Adam Small.
The Utes enter their first season in the Big 12 favored to win the conference and go to the college football playoff for the first time. Ed Cable says with the guys Utah has this year, it should be expected.
I think the talent is there. That's the thing. This could be one of the best teams that we ever see.
Sean Horton actually told me he doesn't think the Utes will lose a regular season game this year.
We got a lot of our seniors back, and that's why we've got to go big this year. We've got all the good people. We got a stacked team, and we should go well, and we got a pretty weak schedule.
If everything falls in place for this team, tailgaters agreed it's not unreasonable to think this team could make a deep run in their ultimate goal of winning a national championship.
I'm just excited to get going.
Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin space company launched its 26th New Shepard flight today in West Texas. This is the company's 8th human flight. Blue Origin says for the first time a NASA-funded researcher conducted an experiment during the 11-minute suborbital space flight. It's designed to help scientists understand how plant genes react to the transition to and from microgravity. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day right now, 243 points, while the NASDAQ is down just a bit, 39 points. And our KSL weather. We have sunny skies, but some smoke drifting in. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money. But do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At Capital Wealth Advisors, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the Capital Wealth Advisors team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 801-210-5500. That's 801-210-5500. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you are always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health, Salt Lake City.
Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Someone asked me, do you know how many devices the average home has connected to their Wi-Fi network? It's way more than I thought. I actually went home and counted how many connected devices I own. More than a dozen. All to keep me connected to my good stuff, my streaming, my gaming, all my interneting. Xfinity knows the number of devices we connect to our internet is growing by the year. That's why they engineered their gateways to handle hundreds of connected devices. Hundreds. For real. Now through September 21st, new customers can get Xfinity Gig Internet for $25 a month for 2 years when you add Xfinity Mobile with unlimited data. Plus, get Peacock Premium, a $7.99 monthly value included. Make sure your home Wi-Fi can handle everything you throw at it, and then some. Visit Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store to switch today. Xfinity. Bring on the good stuff. Restrictions apply. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account, equipment taxes and fees extra. Gig Wi-Fi requires Xfinity Gateway. Xfinity Mobile requires Xfinity Internet. After promo, regular internet rates apply. Actual speeds vary.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents a gallon. Here's Mark Christiansen.
Looks like a rollover accident. This is in the intersection of Van Winkle and 9th East. All traffic headed northbound being diverted one direction or the other. If you're southbound on 9th East, it looks like you'll have to go westbound on Van Winkle until they get that cleared out. Also, delays are definitely in place, Bangerter, as you head northbound towards the 201. This is kind of a congested area this time of the afternoon, but it's building and there will be a few-minute wait there. Experience fall in Cedar City. Color featuring 4 scenic highways, Red Rock views in Cedar Breaks, and Dixie National Forest. Shakespeare Festival, hiking, mountain biking, and more. Bring your journey at visitcedarcity.com. I'm Mark Christiansen in the KSL Traffic Center.
It'll be sunny with a high of 83 today, rising into the 90s by the weekend. Wildfire smoke also blowing into the state, and that could drop our air quality into the yellow or orange range. Right now, 77 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
I want to start hour number 2 of the program today by thinking again about what we think we know about the Constitution, the founders, and our relationship to government, and what could actually reunite us as a nation. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Over the weekend, I was able to have a fantastic conversation with good friend of the program, Yuval Levin. Of course, he's the director of constitutional studies at the American Enterprise Institute. He's the author of a new must-read, put it on your list, get it now book. It's titled American Covenant: How the Constitution Unified Our Nation and Could Again. I love the title. And it is so true that there are things within the Constitution that did unite the nation in the beginning and could unite us again if we dig into it in the right way. So this is a conversation I had with Yuval Levin on Sunday edition for KSL TV. And to begin our conversation, I asked Yuval why he framed our relationship to the Constitution as a covenant. Here's what he said.
You know, covenant is a way of reminding us that we belong together. In one respect, it's just another way of saying contract, and in another sense, it's very, very different from a contract. Contract describes just some things we owe each other in return for which we're going to hang together. A covenant describes a relationship that is ultimately not breakable, that makes demands on us by defining who we are, by shaping our identity as belonging together. And that's how I think about the American Constitution, and that's how I think about the American nation. We belong together. We are one people. And if we begin from that premise, then we can think about how to make this work rather than about whether to deal with each other. And I think that beginning is hugely important for helping American public life work in this moment.
Yeah, I love how in the book you talk about that very fact that unity is acting together, not thinking alike. How do we start to apply that in our communities?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, we talk a lot about unity in American politics now. We feel divided, we feel isolated and alienated. And so there is talk of unity, but very often we talk about it as if unity means everybody agreeing. And our politicians essentially say, if everybody agreed with me, then everything would be great. And I think that's true. If everybody agreed with me, everything would be great. But that's not going to happen. And it isn't really what we want either. The strength of a free society emerges from the fact of disagreement, the fact that different people bring different kinds of insight to the table. And ultimately, politics is an arena for acting together to address common problems. Politics is where we answer the question, what shall we do? And both the we and the do really matters. And ultimately, if we see it as an arena for action, then we can see our way to unity, even in a very diverse and often divided society. Because unity doesn't mean we have to agree. It doesn't mean thinking alike. It means acting together. We have to agree on a course of action that's acceptable to as many of us as possible. And that is achievable because we have a system of government that is built to enable us to act together when we don't think alike, by compelling negotiation, competition, the ways in which we deal with each other. That's what the Constitution is ultimately for. And if we see it that way, then we can see our way toward improving it and strengthening it.
Yeah. I love the fact that you lean heavily on Madison, but you also reference Hamilton, who got a play and a big Broadway production. Jefferson, of course, got a big monument. Madison doesn't quite have as much, but he was really the one promoting unity, where Jefferson was much more about equity and Hamilton was a little more in terms of vitality and order. Kind of walk us through why the Madisonian approach is so important in that unity making.
It's really true. I guess a musical about James Madison might be a little dull because he spent all of his time at a desk thinking and writing, but Madison stands out to me in part because he thought about this question of unity more than anybody else. He thought the problem to be solved was the problem of faction and the problem of intense and broad diversity. And in that sense, he was really ahead of his time. Madison sometimes strikes us now as a kind of 21st century thinker. He understood, even in 18th century America, that the big problem for a republic was going to be its internal diversity. And before you can argue about the policy direction and before you can argue about ideology, you have to have a framework for living together as a people. And once you achieve that kind of social peace, then you can have the debate between Jefferson and Hamilton. Madison had a side in that debate. He was a Jeffersonian, but he first of all believed in the necessity of the preconditions for a free society living together. And Madison is really the voice that speaks most in this book. This is not a lawyerly book about the Constitution. It's another way that Madison stands out. Among the prominent framers, he's almost the only one who was not a lawyer. And I think it served him well because he thought as a citizen and as a politician, which is what he was for his entire life, and ultimately thought about the health of American political life in a very distinct way. There are very, very few people in our political tradition, maybe only Madison and Lincoln, who made the question of union their question. And Lincoln had an obvious reason for doing that. Madison just saw ahead of his time what the big challenges were going to be. And for that reason, really, the Constitution, it often is criticized for being a relic, for being behind the times, not sophisticated enough. But over and over, it proves itself to be more sophisticated than its critics about the deepest problems of modern democracy. And Madison is a big reason for that.
Madison is an important member of the founders. He usually doesn't get the headlines, and he usually doesn't get the attention. As we said in the conversation with Yuval, Hamilton got a musical, Jefferson got a monument. I think Madison needs something. And he is one who didn't approach it as a lawyer. One of the few founders that didn't have a background in the law. He approached it as a citizen. And I think that's why he looked at the Constitution as a unifying document, not just an organizing document, but a unifying document, because it really is the framework for what we choose to do together. And I love the way you've all framed that. The two important parts, we and do. What we choose to do together in our communities and in our country matter. What will we choose to do? Not what will we choose to talk about, and not what will they do, but what will we do? That's the essence. It was the essence of the Constitutional Convention in the beginning. It was about we the people. And what are we going to do? We're going to form a more perfect union. That is the work that we are choosing to do together. Not some abstract, not some commissioned government bureaucracy or smart people doing the job. It's a we the people job. And it's why we often talk about it on this program. It's what do we choose to do together? Again, not what we choose to talk about together, not what are they going to do, or them, but us, we. What are we going to do together? We're going to stay with the conversation with Yuval Levin. And again, extraordinary book out by Yuval Levin entitled American Covenant, How the Constitution Unified Our Nation and Could Again. It comes from my interview of Yuval Levin from our nation's capital for Sunday edition on KSL TV over the weekend. We're going to stay with the conversation coming up next. Stick around.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. It's going to be a tumultuous election year.
I think that we're hitting a nerve. I think this is a different kind of a race.
I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys.
Get the fairest coverage from voices you trust. Tim and Amanda, mornings from 5 to 9. Conversation with Dave and Dejanovic at 9 and Boyd Matheson at 1. And on your drive home, get the latest and catch your breath with Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News at 3. It's hard to know what election year holds. We'll have you covered at KSL News Radio.
This August, support your Utah Symphony by getting your tickets for top-tier entertainment at Marisa Bravenel Hall. See aerial artists and dancers on stage with Cirque Cinema Troupe Vertigo. Get swept to sea at Pirates of the Caribbean in concert. Experience iconic classical works like Vivaldi's The Four Seasons and Mozart's Requiem. Right now, you can get the best available main floor seats for $25 at usuo.org/on sale. All prices are subject to change depending on availability. Some restrictions may apply.
Looking for a beautiful and functional upgrade to your home? 3 Day Blinds has you covered. At 3 Day Blinds, our free in-home design consultation makes it easy. A 3 Day Blinds design expert will help you find the window treatment solution that works best for your home's needs and style. We bring the showroom to you with loads of samples, giving you an idea of how different fabrics look in your home. Your designer also provides expert measurements and helps coordinate installation. Book your free in-home consultation by visiting 3dayblinds.com. Take control of your window treatments with Motorized by 3 Day Blinds. Whether you're at home or on vacation, you can operate your window treatments with the touch of a button using the 3 Day Blinds app. 3 Day Blinds has specialized in window treatments for more than 40 years, and it's the name people trust. At 3 Day Blinds, we have stylish and functional window treatments for any occasion. For your free custom same-day quote, schedule your free in-home design consultation now at 3dayblinds.com. That's 3dayblinds.com.
The Utah RV Super Show, the premier RV event of the year, is back at the Mountain America Expo Center, Thursday, September 12th through Sunday, September 15th. Come see new 2025 models and special closeout pricing on all 2024 models. Bring a can of food for the Utah Food Bank and get $1 off per can, up to half off adult admission. Unplug from distractions and plug in to your family at the Utah RV Super Show. Discount passes at UtahRVSupershow.com.
When you switch and save with Progressive, you could use that money towards going to see your favorite team in the playoffs. Progressive cannot guarantee that you can go see your favorite team in the playoffs. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds on average, but we cannot guarantee that your favorite team will make the playoffs or even finish with a winning record. They could easily lose more than half their games and finish in the cellar because they stink badly and haven't made the playoffs in years. Savings, very possible. Playoffs, highly doubtful. Switch and see if you could save at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance and Affiliates, not available in all states. We cannot be held liable for your favorite team's terrible and frankly embarrassing performances now or ever.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up! And call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
Hi, can I help you?
You don't recognize me?
You look familiar. Have we met?
I'm your property taxes.
Oh, sure. You've gotten bigger.
Guess what?
Come on. No, you can't just... Give me a break.
Rising property values in Utah have led to increased property taxes. Some are struggling due to those increases, but it's time for good news. AARP Utah is here to help. AARP Utah has made it the top priority to connect qualified Utahns to our state's Circuit Breaker program, which offers tax relief to renters and homeowners. If you're over 66 with a household income below $41,000, you might qualify to save up to $1,200 in property tax relief. Don't miss out. The deadline to apply for homeowners is September 1st. For more information and to see if you qualify for up to $1,200 in property tax relief, visit aarp.org/UT. That's aarp.org/UT.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Jeff Kaplan. When you're online, that's sometimes a source of fourth-hand information. Somebody does the reporting. Another website Googles, they find it, they rewrite it, and by the time you read it, you know the old game telephone. But KSL is a source of primary information. We have reporters on the street. They're out in the field finding out the details. And the difference between online and KSL News Radio, night and day.
Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News, 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
My savings are gone.
Okay, where were they last?
Here, right before I spent them on that vacation to Aruba.
Weird. Not weird. Not saving now means no money later. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, there's still plenty of money left in Utah's first-time homebuyers program. Second, Israel's military says it's killed a top terrorist leader in its ongoing operation in the West Bank. Third, tailgaters grilling up their favorites across from Rice-Eccles Stadium, getting ready for tonight's football season opener at the University of Utah. 77 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
We're staying with the question and the conversation with Yuval Levin from the American Enterprise Institute and author of the new book, American Covenant, How the Constitution Unified Our Nation and Could Again. Yuval, one of the things that I love that you frame in this book is we often talk about the Constitution being this charter for liberty, and yet really it's a charter for unity. Explain that for us.
Yeah, certainly there are a lot of important ways, of course, in which the Constitution protects our core liberties by restraining the reach of government into various arenas of our lives and making possible a free society. But it's very important to see that one of the core problems that the framers of the Constitution were trying to address was the problem of disunity, the risk of civil war and of social breakdown. It was very much on their minds at the end of the 18th century in America. And the Constitution arises to address that problem by providing various ways for differing and competing factions in American life to deal with each other, often to really literally make deals with each other. The American Constitution differs from a lot of other democracies around the world, the parliamentary democracies in Europe and Asia and much of the world, in that it doesn't empower narrow majorities to exercise power. It requires them first to grow, to broaden. When you win an election in the United Kingdom, you just win all the power of the government for however long you have your majority in Parliament. You win an election in the United States, you win a seat at the table. And what happens at the table is bargaining and negotiation and accommodation among a variety of people who all won their seats at the table. And the American system is frustrating for that reason. It's especially frustrating for narrow majorities, but it is also very good at sustaining over the long term the capacity of our society to deal with difference. American democracy is now the oldest of the living democracies. It's been the most stable of the democratic regimes. And a lot of the reason for that is that it's built to contain dangerous differences and divisions and to allow us to find ways to deal with each other and to make change gradually and incrementally. That's oftentimes what it's criticized for, especially by progressives who want to see fast movement in their direction whenever they win a little tiny majority in Congress. But that's not how our system has ever worked, and it's not how we should want our system to work. Ultimately, it has to facilitate broad coalition building. That's really the knack that we've been losing in American life in the 21st century. And to recapture it, we could do worse than by first re-encountering and reacquainting ourselves with the American Constitution.
Yeah, and it really does lead to that kind of real deliberative process when it comes to lawmaking. As you mentioned, so many win a slim majority and think it's a mandate and think they should rush things through. That slow process of building coalition and overcoming obstacles is not a flaw, it's a feature in our constitutional republic. And help us walk through, how do we start to re-enthrone that great deliberative body that Congress, the United States Senate in particular, once was and needs to be again?
I think it's vital to see that Congress is at the center of our system. It is the first branch of government. It is where the core work of American republicanism and democracy have to happen, so that when Congress is in bad shape, our whole system is in bad shape. And today, Congress is in bad shape. Its members willingly and willfully give over their power and authority to the presidency and the courts. They don't want to take responsibility for hard decisions. And I think ultimately to change that and to strengthen Congress, we have to reinvest the ambition of members in the work of the institution by centralizing power in Congress in the hands of leaders, so that we operate as if there are only 4 members of Congress, the party leaders in the 2 houses. We've made it so that most members are right to think that spending all their time and energy and ambition on committee work and on substantive legislative negotiation would be a waste of their time. That's not actually where decisions are made. To change that, you have to change the underlying fact. You have to re-empower the committees, allow decisions to be made by groups of members who negotiate with each other. There are some mechanisms that compel this to happen. I think, for example, that the filibuster in the Senate, though it's not in the Constitution, it's a discretionary Senate rule, serves a very, very important constitutional purpose. It forces the parties to deal with each other and doesn't allow narrow majorities to avoid the work of negotiation. Reinvesting Congress in that work is really key. And so the book does talk about some congressional reforms to decentralize power, to re-empower committees, to rethink the budget process, things that seem very mundane, but that ultimately answer to the Madisonian insight that the institutional structure shapes political culture. So you have to think about incentives. This was really Madison's great insight, and it remains as true as ever.
Yeah, that is so important, that the ambition in the institution, rather the ambition in the individual, has to really drive that. Just in our last 30 seconds here, Yuval, you also mentioned in the book the note that George Washington sent as they sent the Constitution forward, talking about amity, talking about concession and deference. Just give us a 30-second summation of why that is such a crucial part of the covenant of the Constitution.
Yeah, Washington acknowledges that the Constitution itself is a product of compromise. And I think it's worth our seeing that for us, that means that it's especially well adapted to a politics of bargaining and accommodation, so that the very character of the institution and how it was made can help us understand what its purpose is, which is ultimately to help us deal with exactly the kind of division that we now face in American life.
Yeah, such an important part of that equation. The book, American Covenant, is such an important one. Everyone should pick that up and take it, not just a good read, but then start a conversation around your kitchen table, across your back fence, and in your community. Yuval Levin, as always, thank you for great writing, great thinking, and for being part of the crucial conversation in our country. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Boyd.
That was my conversation with Yuval Levin on Sunday edition for KSL TV, and there are so many layers in there. You need to go back and re-listen, re-watch. There are so many important principles in there. I love where Yuval ended all of this by saying we've got to get back to the ambition in the institution rather than the ambition in the individual. And if we just have people in Congress in particular that are only out for themselves and their own popularity and power and progress, that's going to keep us a very far way away from where we need to be for the good of the nation. Again, the book is American Covenant, How the Constitution Unified Our Nation and Could Again. Big thanks to Yuval Levin for joining us from Washington, D.C. We're going to go ahead and step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news. Don't go anywhere. We've got a lot to go in the back half of the program here, including my conversation with Elder David A. Bednar of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on my trip to Peru last week. You don't want to miss that. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. We have breaking news. Rocky Mountain Power has reduced the rate increase it was asking for. It had wanted an increase of $667 million, or about 30% for most ratepayers. The amended request asks for an 18% increase. The rate increase had been opposed by consumer groups and by Utah's governor. City of Provo is scrambling for funds after the levees along the Provo River were deemed inadequate. KSL News Radio's Britt Johnson has more.
Provo Public Works Director Gordon Haight says the levees have been decertified because they aren't up to current standards. Because of this, FEMA has identified the entire area as floodplain, which forces residents to get flood insurance and possibly decreases their property value.
Upgrading the levees could cost between $50 and $100 million. The City of Provo is applying for grants to help cover that cost and hoping to get to work as soon as possible. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Pentagon is defending its employee at Arlington National Cemetery who tried to stop the Trump campaign from entering an area where pictures are not allowed. The Army said the employee was abruptly pushed aside while trying to enforce the cemetery's rules regarding political campaigning. The Army also said it considers the incident closed since the employee chose not to file charges. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today up 243 points, while the NASDAQ closed down 39 points. The S&P 500 was down less than 1 point on the day. And our KSL weather, sunshine, above all that smoke, that's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
When Dee and I build our new home, and it's almost been 10 years now, I think of all of the appliances that we put in that house, and I cannot tell you how many of them already we have had some major repairs and even replacements. You know the one thing that I haven't given a second thought to? It's the Connecticut soft water system. It is remarkable. We've had two systems in two different homes, and not once have we ever called with an issue to my friends at Connecticut. It's time for you to call Connecticut. If you're replacing an old system or if you're building a new home, whatever it might be, you will be amazed at how efficient the Connecticut soft water system is. For example, when your neighbor puts in 3 bags of salt in his or her system, you will be putting in only 1. It's remarkable how efficient it is. Give them a call. Great people to do business with. Call Northern Utah's authorized Connecticut dealer at 801-576-8600 or go to softwaterutah.com.
Transform your old, outdated kitchen with half-price granite. For a limited time, half-price granite is offering special pricing starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half-price granite, affordable luxury.
Hey, this is Dan, the laptop man from PCLaptops.com. I've been advertising with KSL Radio for decades now, and radio works. With all the clutter on social media, radio cuts through all the noise and gets directly into your customer's brain. If you're a small business and want to reach the local audience here in Salt Lake City, KSL Radio is the way to go.
If you'd like to know more about the benefits of advertising with KSL News Radio, email Stephanie Palmer at spalmer@ksl.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Mark Christiansen.
Well, it looks like the South Interchange, southbound I-15, now starting to tighten up a little bit. 5900 south through about 7800 south. You'll see the brake lights. And then as you approach 106 south, if you're headed northbound on 15, slower section of traffic between 114th and about 106 south as well. Westbound 201, approaching 3200 west, you'll definitely start to see some brake lights there. And Bangerter, headed northbound towards the 201, always crowded to try and make that switch over to east or westbound 201. Take up to $10,000 off Chevy Silverado or lease a new Equinox EV for only $369 a month. When you walk through the doors, you feel like family at Murdoch Chevrolet in Logan or Woods Cross or online at murdochchev.com. I'm Mark Christiansen in the KSL Traffic Center.
It'll be sunny today with a high of 83, rising into the 90s by the weekend. Wildfire smoke also blowing into the state, which could diminish our air quality. Right now, 79 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather today.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As many of you know, I was away from the microphone last week and was actually down in Lima, Peru for an extraordinary gathering of young people, young professionals from all across South America who came together for the Roble del Sur Foundation's conference. And in that conference, the focus is to empower and engage young people, young professionals with opportunities, the skills, the resources to make a difference in their community, to interact with government and NGOs and other people in the community to make a difference, all coming from a place of faith. These are young members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who are into their professions that range everything from law to healthcare to government work to politics and everything in between, small business owners. And it was a fascinating conference. I learned a lot. I'm going to share with you some of the things that I learned coming up at 2:50. But in the context of that conference where I had the opportunity to speak, we also heard a keynote address from Elder David A. Bednar, an apostle in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who addressed this gathering. And I want to share with you some of the conversation that I was able to have with Elder Bednar just outside the meeting room after he delivered his keynote address. And we began by just getting some impressions from Elder Bednar about the group, this young group of professionals, and the difference that they were making in community by living principles.
Well, I think we begin with the fact that all of these young people are devoted disciples of Jesus Christ. They recognize him as their Savior, and that's the beginning point. That gives them a strength, a capacity, judgment beyond their years. Many of them are returned missionaries. They've had experiences that are uncommon for young people. They serve in the church, which again is amplifying those capacities that they've been developing. So they have tremendous ability to bless, to serve. It's the desire of their heart. It starts in their own discipleship, in their families, in their wards and branches, and in the communities where they live. They're attractive. I'm not talking about physical attraction. There's a light and a goodness that people are drawn to.
We continue the conversation talking about the challenges in many places where faith is being pushed out of the public square, and in many cases where it is being mocked in the public square, despite the fact of some pretty impressive results in terms of quality of life and making a difference.
I'll start simply. It's perplexing. These people who criticize us and say that we're foolish, but yet we're fabulously happy. And it's confounding. They don't know what to make of it. How can people who seem to be fairly bright have these silly beliefs and yet be so competent and be so happy? So I think the paradox is those who mock can't make any sense of the fact that these people are this good and this happy simultaneously.
As a world religious leader, Elder David A. Bednar often interacts with heads of state, government officials, and leaders. And he described for me in this conversation, again, just outside the conference room there in Lima, Peru, some of his interaction with some high-level government officials and what often happens in that setting.
It's really a joyful experience. Almost all politicians have people coming to them always asking for something. So in an appropriate way, I simply say to them, I may be the only person who has ever come into your office, and I'm not here to ask you for anything. My question is, we believe that we're all God's children. That makes us brothers and sisters. And our church seeks for opportunities around the world to see if we can't be of help. What could I do? What can our church do to help you? And on one occasion, the person to whom I posed that question, very high-ranking government official, actually physically looked stunned. And he said, I have never had anybody ask me that question. And so we can't do all things for all people. But we do some things that we've identified as really strong features of our church that we can do and do consistently. So for example, increasing mobility for disabled people. We provide wheelchairs. I'm not going to give a long list of all the things that we do, but that's one specific example of how we can go and help make a person's life better who may have a bleak outlook because they're just not able to have any mobility at all.
As we continue the conversation, Elder Bednar described to me how often we look to create efficiencies in terms of how we deal with problems, so often creating and looking at people as problems to be solved rather than individuals with infinite potential. And he said there are actually some efficiencies that might appear a little inefficient to begin with.
Well, people who've heard me teach and testify know that I frequently refer to the power of the principle of one by one. That is the methodology that the Savior was an example of. It's what he taught, and it's how we most effectively serve people. When we consider the scale, the magnitude, the overwhelming work that needs to be done, I think it's easy to just kind of hunker down and say, I can't do anything, so I won't even try. Everybody can do something for one person. And if that is done in a way such that that person obtains a similar desire to bless another person, that one becomes a one, another one, and another one. And the paradox of all that is that it becomes highly effective and efficient and much more rapid than we might expect.
Everybody can do something. That one by one, we may not be able to solve all the world's problems, but we can help a neighbor in need. We can help someone who's struggling at work. We can make a difference for somebody in our local community. And that's the challenge. And sometimes we think that's so inefficient. But there are some efficiencies around that. I love the way Elder Bednar said, look, there's some real efficiencies in that. If we help that one person and then they're inspired and they want to help someone, and that begins to build this unity in this community, that actually becomes transformational. That's a powerful principle that I think we often miss when we try to outsource the answers to all the problems in the world to government or to big entities that are far away. You can't do that. You have to get to that one-on-one level. We also talked in our conversation there in Lima, Peru, about religious liberty and why it's so vital to continue to create human flourishing around the world.
Well, I have a schizophrenic answer. What has happened is amazing, and it's still only a drip. I said in the original message that, this social media thing is new. We're just beginning to learn about it, so the messaging is just beginning of a tidal wave. Well, the wave is 20 feet tall now, but at that time there were only perhaps 2 billion people experimenting with social media. Now there's 6 billion. So as much progress as we may have made, there's still a lot more progress yet to be made.
That was Elder Bednar talking about social media and how he had given this invitation a decade ago to flood it with goodness, to flood it with principles that ring true, principles that he believes are found in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and how while many things have happened for good on social media, the problem is that at the time he issued that, there were only about 2 billion people on social media. Now there's 6 billion. And so there's still a lot more work to do. So that was my conversation with Elder David A. Bednar, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We were attending and participating in an event there in Lima, Peru with the Roble de Sur Foundation and this group of young professionals, members of the Church of Jesus Christ, who are looking to just make a difference in their own communities, all these countries across South America, just looking for an opportunity and the skills and the ideas to make a difference. I came away very inspired, and we're going to talk about what I learned from this group in Lima, Peru at this conference coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's going to be a tumultuous election year.
I think that we're hitting a nerve. I think this is a different kind of a race.
I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys.
Get the fairest coverage from voices you trust. Tim and Amanda, mornings from 5 to 9. Conversation with Dave and Dejanovic at 9 and Boyd Matheson at 1. And on your drive home, get the latest and catch your breath with Jeff Kaplan's Minute of News at 3. It's hard to know what election year holds. We'll have you covered at KSL News Radio.
So what would happen if you had instant access to your own coach and dietitian to help you lose those frustrating pounds and inches that have just been hanging around for too long and are keeping you from the active and healthy lifestyle you want to live? Well, I'll tell you what happened to me. When I tapped into my Soda weight loss specialist, I lost 37 pounds in 90 days. I've stayed there for over 2.5 years, regardless of what I've been doing, because it works. It's based on science. It's not a fad. It's not a potion. It's not a prescription. It is safe. It produces results and no harmful side effects that you often see with a lot of those quick fix diet drugs. And if you want to have that kind of sustained success, if you want to get to the place you want to, it's time to start your Soda weight loss journey. SOTA stands for state-of-the-art weight loss, because it is. There's no time to lose, only time to win. So start winning today. Get some real results with Soda weight loss. Check it out at Soda weight loss, SOTAweightloss.com.
That precious cool air inside your house shouldn't be seeping out through old drafty windows, but if it does, get stylish new windows and frames at factory direct pricing from Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Advanced Window Products has been building windows here in Salt Lake City for 38 years, but even if you don't need windows, they can give your interior a fresh new look with blinds, shades, and shutters from Graber. They offer custom crafted window treatments featuring the trendiest designs, premium materials, and quality without compromise. Advanced Windows offers start-to-finish service with shorter lead times so you get your custom blinds, shades, and shutters sooner. Call them for a free in-home consultation with their designers. It's a no-pressure experience, and if you need new windows, $2,500 off on 10 windows or more. Or if you need window treatments, it's Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindowsusa.com. TheOffenseIsInMotion.com.
The offense is in motion, trying to catch the defense off guard. They're looking for an advantage, just like your competitors. But your business doesn't have to be an easy target. Les Olson IT is your playbook for success. We'll analyze your business needs, identify opportunities, and create a customized technology strategy to help you win. Touchdown! That's how it's done. Achieve your business goals with Les Olson IT. Visit lesolsonit.com for a free technology assessment. Let's make some big plays together.
Les Olson IT.
Stop by the JCW's The Burger Boys in Harriman, 5251 Anthem Park Boulevard tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. and celebrate kickoff to football with KSL's Mitch Harper. See you there.
Right now at Wendy's, you can get a small Frosty for $1. And literally everyone is going. The car behind you, going to get a $1 Frosty. The car ahead of you, already had one, going for a second. The person who cut you off earlier, you guessed it, $1 Frosty. Maybe it's all a sign for you to go get one. Just don't cut anyone off. No one likes that person. The iconic Frosty for $1, gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's. Not valid in a combo. Prices may be higher in Alaska, Hawaii, California, and via third-party delivery.
Febreze.
So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
This is my favorite time of year. There's just something about that change to autumn. You can start feeling it in the air in the morning. It's a little cooler. You can leave the windows open at night and it actually brings some relief. It's the time that we love to, in our family, go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And there are two great locations. One right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City. Think of all the things that are going on in the city, whether it's a concert, maybe you're just going to a movie, maybe eventually we'll be going to ball games, all kinds of fun things right there at 275 Southwest Temple. That's the downtown location of Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And as we start to have this change to fall, how about a drive up into the canyon, up through Parley's Canyon and to Park City for Ruth's Chris Steakhouse there. You're going to love that dining experience. They prepare the food perfectly. And the side dishes and the desserts, we've already got our reservation set for my birthday at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Rocky Mountain Power is asking for a smaller rate increase than it originally filed for a few weeks ago. Second, the levees along the Provo River have been decertified. That means many residents may have to buy flood insurance. And third, an employee at Arlington National Cemetery has declined to file charges in an incident involving former President Trump's campaign. 79 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program, I want to share another little insight from my trip to Lima, Peru. As I mentioned before, was part of this really extraordinary conference down there. Roble de Sur Foundation has this annual conference. They convene young professionals from all across South America. Most of them are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They have all kinds of different vocations, from lawyers to healthcare professionals to people working in government, small business owners, politicians, everything in between. And they were part of several days of training of how do you make a difference in community. The whole vision for the organization, which is amazing in and of itself, is just to empower and engage these young professionals for a life of service and leadership through principles, and the principles that really do make a difference. The leadership group is just absolutely extraordinary. Romana Amor, a former congresswoman from Brazil, and Hugo Ricciuti, who's the vice president, he's from Argentina. Kent Burton is from the United States, and Gelino Marcelino was also a big part of making this all happen. And the most amazing thing were the participants. Yeah, you've heard me say before, I often can get pessimistic about our politics, but I continue to be really optimistic and positive about the future. And the reason I can remain positive is because of people and principles. And it was so fascinating to me to listen to these young professionals, again, focusing on how do we just make a difference. I came away inspired and reinvigorated because many of these young people live in countries where they've got some pretty major challenges, whether it's some corruption in government, whether that's at the local level or the highest level. They have some real challenges in terms of taking their faith into the public square. But the interesting thing to me was that this was not a group of young professionals who were sitting around stewing about things or complaining about things. They were simply saying, how do we change things? And the thing that I heard over and over and over from these participants, again, from all over South America, from all kinds of different professions, was we want to make a difference. We want to engage through our principles. And we want people to see in us integrity. We want people in our community to see us as compassionate. We want people to have trust in us because they will have seen us in the community or have seen that we can have conversations that transcend the politics of it all. So this group is together over several days. As I mentioned, Elder David A. Bednar of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Quorum of the 12 Apostles was one of the keynote speakers. And he talked about these young people as being the hope of their countries. And to be that hope was the real test and the real challenge by living the principles. Living the principles. Now, they had conversations on a wide range of things. Some of the topics that they took on, climate and stewardship of the environment. And how do you do that different? How do you avoid the fake fights and the false choices that are so often served up all over the world? It's not just here in America, by the way. It happens everywhere. They had deep conversations about education and how do we train the next generation to know what freedom really looks like, why religious freedom is important, why we do need to engage in the political process, even though it can be difficult and frustrating, or even come at a cost. Many of them have experienced that cost, the cost of living up to the principles they profess to believe. They talked about community. They talked about government. They talked about the political process. In one of our conversations, we talked about the fact that in the political process, you've got to have strong voices. Certainly, you've got to have strong advocates. But you also have to have that counterbalancing sense of humility and civility and dignity that ultimately leads to the right kind of dialogue that can help you solve the problems. I can't tell you how many hallway conversations were taking place of people just coming together to figure out, well, how can we do this? How could we change this in our community or inside of our country? Where do we begin? What do we do? We had Rachel Miner joined us from the Bellwether. Bellwether is a fascinating group. We're going to have Rachel join us on the program coming up later in September that is all about getting the forces in place to prevent genocide. Genocide has been happening at an increasing rate. It has a very interesting tie to undermining religious liberty or forcing people of all different faiths out of the public square, or those countries where they're only able to practice their faith in their home, in their synagogue, in their mosque, in their temple, but not in the public square. And so how do you bring your whole authentic self as a follower of Christ, a follower of Buddha, whatever it might be, into the public square to actually make a difference? And by the end of the program, I told the participants that I wanted to bring them all home with me. And then I actually wanted to do a road trip to Washington, D.C. Because so often we have things in this country where we've been convinced that we're too divided to solve problems. We become mired in the muck of negative campaigns, and it prevents us from getting to those things that unite us and the things that will actually create true progress and forward movement for society. And these young people were inspiring. As you stand in front of a group, you're giving a speech. Sometimes you have an audience that listens. Sometimes you have an audience that's engaged. They're taking some notes. And every once in a while, over the last 30 years, as I've traveled around the world and given speeches in front of groups large and small, once in a while, you have a group of absolutely extraordinary individuals who are so hungry to learn, who are so committed to taking a principle, learning a principle, applying a principle, and then taking it home and doing it all over again. That's inspiring. And I came away from Lima, Peru, incredibly inspired by all those who participated in the Roble de Sur Foundation's conference that is making a difference. And if you ever doubt if one person can make a difference, I saw it in South America. We need a whole lot more belief of it right here in the United States and all over the world for that matter. Well, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah.
University of Utah Health and the Department of Defense.